your teams.
Hell, it is Barner. It is Barner, and he's gone.
The Beavers are the national champions.
Brandon, a three-pointer out front. Hit it! Yes, he did!
His take.
Here's what I think.
Matt Bagley.
At least in my experience with bad hair, I think it can teach us about why Justin Herbert did what he did. As a kid, you go to the barber when your dad says, son, you need to go to the barber. My hair would get buzzed every couple of months. Finally in college, on the advice of one of my cousins, just start over, point blank, and put some good product in it, and then grow your hair however you want. And I thought, wow, that's a really good idea. I'm 18, I got my whole life in front of me, why not just see? And so winter break, my freshman year of college, I shaved my head bald.
Talking local sports.
The worst haircut I ever had came from an inspiration for change. I feel like Justin Herbert is pulling out of that same bag here.
Southern Oregon Sports Talk with Matt Bagley. Presented by Medford BMW on 96.1 580 The Game.
I want to thank everyone that tuned in last week to the Abbeys Basketball Classic, an annual tradition in the Rogue Valley, a kickoff of our high school basketball broadcast schedule this winter 2022. I want to thank everybody that listened last week to Zach Gelb covering me while I was covering games at the Abbeys Classic. And I want to thank you for sticking with me, because we made it another year on this radio show. I launched it in the summer of 2016, and we're still ticking. We're still going. 2022, baby. I love it. Hey, I have to admit, I was caught by surprise when Oregon State postponed their game 15 minutes before tip-off today. I was not supposed to be on the radio with you. I was caught by surprise. I scrambled to prep my radio show. And here's the first thing that came to my mind. Occasionally, I will get a phone call or an email, usually the latter, because we're talking about young people now, my age or younger, that will reach out to me asking me about my experience in sports radio. A high school kid or a college kid, maybe somebody back at my old college radio station at Oregon Tech, that they are getting their feet wet in this great sports radio landscape. And they reach out to me and they say, Matt, how do you do it? What do you do? Right? They want to pick my brain so that they get better. Same thing I do to the big guys up in Portland all the time. And I tell them this. Sports radio is about one thing: balance. You have to balance what you care about as a host with what your listeners care about as an audience. Sounds simple, and I can use us as an example. 96.1, 580 The Game in Southern Oregon, and this radio show, Southern Oregon Sports Talk. 9 times out of 10, I'm talking about what you care about. I'm talking about the Ducks. I'm talking about the Beavers. I'm talking about the Blazers. Or we'll get into the local stuff, right? I'll interview a local sports writer or a local student athlete because you care about that. It's what you care about as a listener. Sometimes when I talk about the NFL, right, there's a reason my NFL coverage is Seahawks, Niners. You care about those teams. There's a reason when we're talking about hockey, it's the Seattle Kraken. You care about that team. Or we're talking about baseball, it's the Giants, the Dodgers, the Mariners, the A's. You care about those teams more often than not. Sports radio is balancing that, what you care about, with what I care about. And today, we're going to find that balance a little bit more than normal. It's normally your show, Southern Oregon Sports Talk. It's normally your teams. It's what you care about. But I got to lead the show with what I care about, which is my Las Vegas Raiders. I think it's the most compelling story in the NFL heading into the final week of the season, and I truly, deeply believe that. It's not just because they're my favorite team. It's not just because I watch them on Sundays. It's because of what I've seen them go through this year and what I've seen them go through over the past 5 years. We'll go way back, 2016, Christmas Eve. The then Oakland Raiders are the darlings of the NFL. They are in the midst of a 12-win season. They are in the running for an AFC West division title, and they are in the running for one of the coveted byes, one of the top 2 seeds in the AFC playoffs. And if they get one of those byes, if they win that AFC West division and get one of those byes, I will go to my grave believing that Oakland Raider team competes for a championship. And guess what happens? Christmas Eve 2016, their star quarterback, who at the time, you might laugh now, at the time he was an MVP candidate, folks, breaks his ankle. Derek Carr is carried off the field in a stretcher, and he's never been the same. 2017, the Raiders were mediocre. 6-10, their coach gets fired. John Gruden comes in. The next offseason, the 2016 Defensive Player of the Year, the most dominant defender I've ever seen in silver and black, Khalil Mack, he gets traded for peanuts, for pennies on the dollar. They give him up for a deal that I still find laughable. I remember saying on this radio show in the week leading up to the deal, there's no way they trade him for anything less than 4 firsts. The Raiders gave him up for 2 firsts. It was a laughable trade at the time, and I panned it critically at the time. It was a bare cupboard from then on. 2017, they tank. 2018, they tank. 2019 and 2020, they get incrementally better. They get better bit by bit by bit. And now they're here in 2021. After losing John Gruden 4 weeks into the year, good or bad, I think it's a bit of both. You lose a genius play caller, undoubtedly, but you also lose a locker room cancer, a coach that I think had lost his ability to motivate his team with the email scandal that came out. Once they realized who he really was, I don't know how you could buy into the guy anymore, but that's just the start of it. A week later, they lose Henry Ruggs. Again, good or bad, I don't think it's good to have a murderer in your locker room, and that's what he did. He murdered somebody. Someone died by his hands and his decisions. I think it's good that he's not in their locker room anymore, but I also just concede he was their number 1 wide receiver. It was the star focal point of their passing game. If you watched him, you know what I'm talking about. He stretched the defense and forced coverages that the Raiders just can't force without him on the field. Safeties have to watch for the deep threat when Henry Ruggs was out there. They don't have to watch the deep threat when an aging Deshaun Jackson is out there, or when a limping Darren Waller or a Foster Moreau that doesn't have a full route tree is out there. It's a different offense. They lose Henry Ruggs. Their offensive line decimated by injuries. No Richie Incognito, starting guard, guy that's been to a Pro Bowl before. Their defense decimated by injuries. Trayvon Mullen was supposed to be their number 1 corner. He's barely played a snap this year. Josh Jacobs, if you watched on Sunday, he's been hobbled by injuries, wincing after every carry. Darren Waller, the remaining focal point on that offense, he hasn't played since Thanksgiving. If you watched that game, you know why. Boy, he just took licks in that Thanksgiving game against the Cowboys. And somehow, some way, the Las Vegas Raiders have a shot at the playoffs. I think it's the most compelling story in football. Given everything they've endured this year, given everything they've endured over the past 4 years, think about just Derek Carr. Think about Derek Carr alone, even if you're not a Raider fan. I think this is the easiest, most compelling sell in the world for why you got to tune in Sunday night right here on The Game for Raiders-Chargers, a play-in game for the wild card in the AFC. Derek Carr was an MVP candidate in 2016, and he broke his ankle on Christmas Eve. He came back. He broke his back the next year. He came back, and after recovering from that injury, his number 1 wideout got traded for a first-round pick, Amari Cooper. His defensive captain, his next-door neighbor, his best friend on the team, and I think the leader of that locker room, above him in the hierarchy of that organization, Khalil Mack, got traded for peanuts, as I just talked about. His head coach got replaced. A new coach came in, gave him a totally new system, one that I don't think he was a fit for at all. And he adjusted to that system to the best of his ability. He put up with that coach and the GM that coach got to replace Derek Carr's old GM, blowing up the building, replacing all of his weapons, Michael Crabtree gone, replacing his offensive line, Rodney Hudson, Gabe Jackson, Trent Brown gone. Put up with all of that, endured everything that came his way, did so with the perfect smile on his face, did so happy to play in silver and black on Sundays. I love the fact that Derek Carr has the opportunity to start a playoff game for the first time in his career. It's not locked in yet. He's got to earn it. He's got to win it. But he has that opportunity. If he wins on Sunday Night Football, a hardworking, enduring, persevering player who I think is incredibly likable. Learn about his backstory at Fresno State. Learn about why he is as faithful as he is, if you're into something like that, as I am. Learn about who he is and that tattoo on his wrist. And learn about what he's done in professional football over the last 5 years, putting up with all that BS I just mentioned. I don't know how you can't root for this guy to win on Sunday Night Football. If he wins, he gets his first playoff start in his career. I think that's amazing. I'm over the moon right now, no matter what happens on Sunday night. Again, I think it's the most compelling story in football. So sorry if I droned on. Sorry if you tuned me out there. But I just can't get enough of that story. I want to hear from you. 541-630-4792. My chips are in the middle of the table. I think the Las Vegas Raiders are the most compelling story in the final week of the NFL regular season. And I just told you why. What do you think is the most compelling story left in the regular season? 541-630-4792. We only got 5 days left, folks. Saturday football, Chiefs-Broncos, right here on the game. We've got, I think we've got some Pac-12 hoops scheduled on Saturday, but if today is any indication, we might just get you both NFL games instead, right? Learfield will have us play that by ear. If today is any indication, we will literally find out at the last minute that, whoops, Oregon State's not playing today, or whoops, Oregon's not playing today. Okay, we'll flip the channels around and have a monkey figure the satellite out for us so we can get you some NFL programming on Saturday. That's my expectation at this point. And then Sunday, tons of NFL. We got the Seahawks regular season finale. We've got the Sunday Nighter that I just mentioned. And then Monday is just going to be crazy. Monday is just 2 hours. No Monday Night Football. No Monday Night Football next Monday, which means you and I get a 2-hour football barrage, which coincidentally is the same thing I've got on tap tomorrow here. Lots of NFL, because I think it's the number one story in sports right now. Let's set the scene for a break. We got the Monday Nighter in 15 minutes, so I want to make sure I cover my bases before we get you that Monday night broadcast, Steelers and Browns. I want to talk about the first glimpses of the Dan Lanning era at Oregon. We've talked a lot about the staff building. We've talked a lot about his recruitment, his retention in the Oregon program. But now we get to talk about the real thing, the coaching. Dan Lanning. What did I like Friday in the college football playoff? I'll tell you what I liked. I'll tell you what I didn't. Next, we got to talk about Antonio Brown because I think there's a massive, glaring misconception in the mess that unfolded Sunday in New York. I'll tell you what I'm thinking, and I'll tell you why I don't blame AB for everything. That's coming up next. Plus, reminder, we got Monday Night Football in 15 minutes. So keep it here, and you're going to be quite entertained. Southern Oregon Sports Talk, presented by Medford BMW. 96.1, 580 The Game.
Apply today if you're looking for a job with an amazing company. Do you want to work for a company that understands how business is conducted and how to treat people right? One that recognizes how their employees directly impact their success? Well, at Masterbrand, we get it. At Masterbrand, you will experience a working environment and culture where all associates are respected and valued. You see, at Masterbrand, we believe our employees are our most important strength. And since you contribute directly to our success, Masterbrand will provide you with a starting wage of $18 per hour. You heard that right. At Masterbrand, your starting wage will be $18 per hour. On top of that, you will also receive an incredible benefits package that includes medical, dental, vision, life, and more. At Masterbrand, you'll receive paid time off to take care of the things that matter most, and we will support you and your family to stay healthy, physically, emotionally, and financially. Let's be successful together. Join an amazing team at Masterbrand. Apply today at masterbrand.com.
Hey, Josh here from A Affordable Royal Flush. Your septic system's like your roof or the paint on your house. At some point in time, it will need to be repaired or even replaced. Regular professional septic system maintenance can extend the life of your septic system as well as catch any small issues before they require big, costly repairs. Give us a call to let us set up an appointment to pump and assess your unique septic system needs to be sure you're in good shape. We carry up to 180 feet of hose on our truck, so getting to just about any tank, it's not a problem. At A Affordable Royal Flush, we're the professionals you can trust for your septic system maintenance, repair, and installation. Call 541-772-3389 in Medford or 541-479-6935 in Grants Pass for a free phone estimate. Be sure to visit our Facebook for more information about septic systems. Our family's been serving the Rogue Valley since 1995 with the right service at the right price. Have a septic system? Think A Affordable Royal Flush. A Royal Flush beats a full house anytime.
Dave, what are you doing?
Just sending a gift to Dave 2037.
Who?
Me in the future. I save a little money from every paycheck as a gift to Dave 2037, so he can spend it on things like anti-gravity boots or a hologram Doberman, something cool like that. I think Dave 2037 deserves it. He worked hard. What are you getting Steve 2037?
I guess I was thinking Steve 2037 would just fend for himself.
Well, all right, but don't expect to be borrowing my anti-gravity boots.
You want to have money in your future? You got to start saving now. Putting some money from every paycheck into a savings account or contributing to your 401k can make a big difference later. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free ideas and easy ways to save, go to feedthepig.org. That's feedthepig.org.
Hey, let's just hope Steve 2037 doesn't get his hands on a cold time machine, because he is going to come back here and knock some sense into you.
This message brought to you by the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants and the Ad Council.
Southern Oregon Sports Talk with Matt Bagley. Talking local sports. Weekdays 4 to 6 p.m. on 96.1 580 The Game.
Monday Night Football boots me off the air in less than 15 minutes right here. Browns-Steelers. If you are inclined, as I am, to root for the Raiders, if you think the Raiders are the most compelling story in sports right now, as I argued at the start of the show, tonight's Monday night game is important to you. You want Pittsburgh to lose. If the Steelers lose one of two, and if the Colts lose on Sunday, the Las Vegas Raiders are guaranteed a playoff spot no matter what happens in Sunday Night Football. If those two things happen, if the Steelers lose tonight and the Colts lose on Sunday, Vegas can start thinking about the playoffs. Bad news is that guarantee of a playoff game likely sends them to Arrowhead. So I'm not telling you the Raiders are going to win the Super Bowl. I'm not that crazy. I'm not nuts. I just love the idea that Derek Carr, who I've loved for years, I think he's one of the most underrated and underappreciated players in all of sports. Someone that carries the seal of Constantine on his wrist, tattooed on his wrist. That is a statement of faith from Derek Carr, and we don't talk about that on the show very much. He is a deeply devout man. I think he's a beautiful soul. The work that he's done to help and represent his community is incredible. And then you factor in his testimony, his experiences in life. He almost lost a son when he was in college, and he played through that fear and trauma of almost losing a child. and played well, I might add, good enough to be a second-round pick in the NFL. And then he gets to the NFL, and he steals a starting job as a rookie, and he puts up with a lot of losses, and he takes a lot of hits and lumps and beatings, not only on the field but off the field from his own fans. And he wins. 2016, he wins 12 games. But he breaks his ankle on Christmas Eve, and he's never been the same since. And his fans remind him of that constantly, and I'm sure he thinks of it constantly. I think Derek Carr, if you were to just look at how his career has started versus, say, Lamar Jackson. Compare him to Lamar. Compare him to Mahomes. Compare him to some of the other good young quarterbacks in the NFL. I think he's gotten the unluckiest start in the NFL with the least amount of help. His organization is in shambles. He's had minimal support his entire career. A carousel of coaches, bad draft decisions, bad free agency decisions, and he has the Raiders on the cusp of a playoff game. He is on the cusp of the first playoff start in his career. I think it's the best story in sports right now. I want to hear from you. 541-630-4792. We'll talk Dan Lanning's Ducks in a minute. Getting responses to your texts here. 541-630-4792. Quote, the Raiders can be successful with a solid run game. Take some pressure off of Carr. Shock him with the deep ball. I agree. Yeah, and to me, that's football 101, right? Like, I'm a big believer in analytics. I'm a big believer in what the advanced stats have to say about the game because I think it's real. I think it's tangible when the analytics community says, hey, field position and turnovers are mucho importante, right? They're very important. Field position and turnovers. I agree. It makes sense to me, logically. If you have to march further yards to the end zone, there's more opportunities to screw up with an interception or a fumble. If you have to march fewer yards to the end zone, it makes sense that it's going to be easier to get in the end zone. And if you have turnovers, it makes sense when you're giving the other team possessions and you're wasting your possessions, it makes sense you're putting your team at a disadvantage. I see the game in an analytically driven way because of those two proven facts. And yet, I disagree with the analytics community about running the football. I think you have to run the football. I think you have to make the defense account for the threat of the run game. Either force a two-safety defense like what Indianapolis ran on Sunday, force them to crowd the box, and then attack them deep with the deep passing game, or at the bare minimum, you force the linebackers to hesitate on passing downs. Because if you run the football well on first and second down, you can attempt play action on third down. And you force those linebackers, even if they don't pinch up, even if they don't respond to the run, they might freeze as they try to figure out, is this a run? Because they got burned on the last two downs. I agree with that person texting in. I think you got to run the football. They've run the football pretty well over the past couple games. Somebody else asks, quote, how would you like your Raiders and my Niners, that's a listener texting in, winning yesterday and still have an opportunity for the playoffs? They add in, would be fun if they beat all the odds and appeared in the Super Bowl together. Now, again, I'm not going to get crazy. You can say that they can go to the Super Bowl. I'm not going to say that because I think the best my team's going to do is just make it to the dance. And if we got to go to Arrowhead and play Kansas City will demolish Las Vegas. It'll be a bloodbath. The Niners, I'm a little less cynical about, but I have to admit, Trey Lance is not impressing me as much as he needs to. That doesn't mean that I don't believe in him long term. I think he very well could be the long-term answer for the Niners. And like I said on the show, I think 2 weeks ago, we were talking about this on the show. It was last Monday. Last Monday, I said that Trey Lance would have been the number one overall pick in this next draft. And I stand by it. Think about who the quarterbacks are in this class and think about how the draft works. Usually that team at the top of the draft order is desperate for a franchise quarterback. And he would have been the best one. But he declared for the draft early. The Niners got him 3rd overall. And they can go into the next year knowing they have a first overall talent at that quarterback position. I just need to see the football IQ for Trey Lance. I saw a lot of locking in on receivers. That means he's zeroing in. His head's not moving post-snap. It's just locked in one direction of the field. And the defense can pick up on that. Linebackers can adjust to it, and they'll pick you off. Houston almost got one. There was a play, I think Christian Kirksey in the second half. Texans were down a touchdown, and Trey Lance tries to lob the football over a linebacker, but they read his eyes the whole way. They knew he was going to throw the football right at him, and it slapped right off of Christian Kirksey's hands, incomplete. And he was kicking himself afterwards, because if they make that interception, it's a completely different ball game. Texans could have won it. I don't trust Trey Lance. He can beat the Houston Texans, sure, but now you've got to win a game in the division. You've got to win that game to get into the playoffs. And then it's only going to get tougher when you get into the playoffs because you're going to have to go to Arizona again, or you're going to have to go to Dallas. And I don't think Trey Lance is capable of beating that caliber of team right now. So I think the Niners get in, but just like Vegas, they get in the dance, but they're not going to dance for long. We're talking a ton of NFL on the show because I think it's the big story in sports. Last week of the regular season, I'd love your thoughts. Even if I don't get to your questions today or your comments today, I have 2 hours on the radio tomorrow. So we can use this time to set the scene for tomorrow's show after the Monday night game. And all you got to do, if you want to jump in on that, is text 541-630-4792. I'll try to leave you with this. And if I have a little extra time, I've got something else on tap for you. Oregon fans just had their first glimpse of the Dan Lanning era. Dominant, physical. I loved what I saw Friday night. I loved what I saw from Georgia in the college football playoff. The Oregon blueprint is going to be this. Recruit like hell, just like Georgia did, just like Mario Cristobal has done at Oregon the past couple years. And build a defense that is indestructible. What do I mean by that? I mean they can rush the passer. I mean they can stop the run. I mean they can cover on 3rd and long, not give up a big play. And they can force turnovers too. That's the Georgia blueprint right now. That's why the Bulldogs are in the national championship game. And that's what I think Dan Lanning is going to bring to Oregon. I loved what I saw from that Georgia defense Friday night, and I think you got to give him a lot of credit. There's an old expression about football teams winning games as soon as they walk off the bus. You don't often hear that anymore, and oftentimes the game is portrayed as so complicated that isn't true anymore, but I think it still is. I think ultimately if you have a bigger, faster, stronger football team, you're going to win a lot of football games. That was Georgia on Friday night. They just were bigger, faster, and stronger than Michigan, and they played that way. And that's what Dan Lanning's going to bring to Oregon. Okay, one last thing here on the show. I want to talk about this a lot more tomorrow. Antonio Brown. I do think he is partly at fault for his antics yesterday. And real quick, just to explain it, if you missed this, I don't know how you did. You're probably living under a rock. He threw his helmet off, threw his pads off, chucked his jersey into the stands, and ran off into the locker room and out of the stadium in the middle of a game yesterday. I've never seen a player do that before. It's once in my life now that I can say I've seen somebody do it. Surely he is at fault for this, but it's not just his fault. It's not just the sports landscape at fault or blaming it on CTE's fault, right? Too many head injuries for Antonio Brown. I don't think that's fair. I think that this is a societal fault. And I will tell you why very shortly, and I'll explain in greater detail tomorrow. Right now in 2021 America, if you are a public figure, and you're well-liked, you get a long leash. If you're famous, if you're good, people let you get away with almost anything. And I think Antonio Brown's been getting away with almost anything for way too long. More tomorrow right here.